Okay, so now we have Ignacy and Amaya, and so I'm gonna leave. Hello, how are you? Very nice to see you. And I'll leave you and Ignacy that she'll be turning on his camera soon. He's your host. Thank you both.
No, thanks, Natalia, for your invitation, and I'm happy to be with Ignacy for this presentation.
Well, I'm sorry because we had some problems with the background and it was making me transparent. So I had to make this, this solution. I'm sorry for that. So, well, we will have this session. I do not know if Amaya wants to talk in Spanish or English. We are both from Spain. And as you feel better. I think that's something that is amazing. So congratulations for all the organization, for all the speakers that we have with us today and with the level of the presentations. But right now, following what we have seen from Ninat Patil, Amaya Celaya will present something really new, something that no one of us have seen before. And this innovation and this news that she will come today for us, it's something amazing. Amaya is the director of the Master Design for Resilience at ELISAVA School. ELISAVA School is one of, I would say, the best design and engineering schools in Spain, with a lot of history, with a lot of very, very good professionals, and something that is really interesting to point out is this fact that design for resilience is something that can be in one school of design. So she has a background in architecture, in urban, and a very strong humanitarian action. During this 50 years experience, I think she has become one of the referents in Spain for catastrophe, post-catastrophe and disaster situations and resilience for that. The relief for that is something very, very difficult, and the sustainability that is included when we have a very hard situation in one region, in one city, in one area, is something that is really interesting to see how this is becoming a part or a subject for architecture and urban planning. So she has been contributing to the ERCC in the European Commission, and she has been developing a role as an advisor for United Nations in UN Habitat and UN-IOM since 2016, and working in different cities in 4 continents, in Latin America, in Africa, Asia, and Europe. So thank you very much for being with us, Amaya, and we hope to learn a lot from your work today. So you have the floor right now, and you can begin to share your presentation.
Thanks, Ignacy, for your presentation. I think we can speak in Spanish because I wouldn't go for a kind of unilateral presentation. I think it's much interesting to have a dialogue because I am very happy to have here you with me. So if it's not a problem, I would. What do you think, Natalia?
I'm here to tell you that it should be in English because the translation goes from English to Spanish. So, you know, for that, if it's not a problem for you, then we'll do it in English.
Okay, that's fine. I will begin then my presentation. And I would like, Ignacy already knows that it's like a dialogue. So the presentation is just an excuse to talk about resilience in action. Okay, let's see if my screen sharing is working. Do you see it?
Perfectly. If you can, yes, that's perfect.
Okay, so, well, following the requirements from the biennial, I thought that it would be interesting to talk about resilience in action. Of course, I have an architectural background, but my work in the last 15 years has been focused on architecture and also on urban settings. So I will mix the bit architecture and also urbanism that we could think that it's the same, but it's not exactly the same. So my first question for the audience and also for Ignacy is why resilience? Why are we talking about resilience? Why the biennial is asking us to talk about resilience? From my personal point of view, but Ignacy, you are welcome. I have been analyzing a bit why I am working myself on resilience, and I thought that of course I work with IOM, the International Organization of Migration. I try to be committed with the humanitarian challenge we are suffering now. I don't know if you know that now we have the most important number of migrants moving, not because they want, but because of different situations due to conflicts, due to economic problems, due to climate change, of course. And we are really suffering and facing a huge humanitarian challenge. Of course, when we talk about resilience now, in the last years, we always focus on the climate angle of resilience. So the adaptive challenge is there. And for me, it's unavoidable to talk about justice, because I think most of the problems related to resilience and sustainability, as for architecture or urban planning, will be solved if we had a more equal and inclusive world. So as for the humanitarian challenge, I think that more or less all of us know that all the crises that we are facing so far are every time more frequent and more violent, and we need to understand and address not only the humanitarian crisis, but the causes, the roots of this crisis, and at local, national, and global levels, and always focusing on people that are the most vulnerable, of course. As for the adaptive challenge, we have already talked about the climate crisis. Something that is totally interlinked with resilience is the concept of uncertainty. We have crises, but this crisis can be turned into opportunities. The uncertainty is always there. We need to understand, we need to tackle this uncertainty, and we need to take advantage of it. And of course, through adaptation, getting better and transform ourselves towards sustainability. So this is something that is very important for architects. Is very key, always understanding the context. So sorry to say that, but sometimes it's not so important to support people. But now we really need to support people, institutions, and states to develop this capacity to adapt, mitigate, and change. And as for the justice challenge, I have already explained it. I think the inequality is all around. This means that every time more and more people are exposed to shocks, stresses, and challenges, we will talk about these different concepts. And we need to tackle this high level of vulnerability. We need to turn vulnerability into capacity building, make them strong and stronger than ever. And of course, having a very clear ideas about what does it mean wealth, what does it mean power, how to balance both, and how to make, allow me to be a bit naive, but it's a decision that I took. We need to understand and address how power could be used to lead to focus on risk exposure and minimize the vulnerability of people. I don't know, Ignacy, how do you see my thoughts?
Well, this is something really interesting when you see that these post-catastrophe or resilience facts are recognized by Antonio Gutierrez and UN as something that we have to follow. So, Amaya, when you are talking about this, let me ask one problem that we have, for example, right now in Europe, no? So right now in our continent, there is a war. So how as an architect, we can be something more than useful in this situation, no? Under your experience?
Well, first of all, architects are always useful and helpful, but they need to know where are the real needs. Perhaps because I am a bit old and I come from an older generation here in Europe, we have been somehow educated in this idea of the architect as a creative artist that sometimes works alone. It's not my experience. I have been always working on a team, and indeed with you sometimes. I think sharing experience and looking for the common good is something that is totally aligned with the idea of what an architect is and should be. In this case, precisely, perhaps could be resilience, the solution or one of the answers to this question. Why? We will explain later on in some of the slides, because we are used to dealing with the concept of sustainability. We are not used to dealing with the concept of resilience. And the difference, or what resilience adds to the equation, is the idea of risks. Perhaps before the pandemic, we never thought about the risks. Only people that were working as me or as you were working in this kind of issues. But now I think everybody can understand that there are risks. There are risks out there. There are risks that are actual. There are risks that can come, and we never know what would happen, and we need to be prepared. So first of all, architects can help cities, governments, well, and in a certain scale, clients, to be prepared. In the case of the war, architects can work with urban settings, can help urban settings to be prepared, to anticipate themselves to different situations, building scenarios in which we can work when the crisis emerges or comes. And of course, we are key for transitional recovery always, because we need to reconstruct, to rebuild the built environment. The built environment in Ukraine now has been totally destroyed in many cities. So how do we rebuild this built environment is also key, taking into consideration risks that perhaps before we had not taken or we had not considered. And I am not talking only about a war, even if the war is, of course, now our main issue, but many problems that if we had this conscious of resilience in the back of our minds when we designed whatever, for the future, we could be better architects and better, allow me to say it, civil servants for the people.
Under your opinion, Amaya, do you think that is something more related to, inside the field of architecture, is more related to the the side of urban planning or the side of building when we are talking about resilience?
Well, I think it's both. Indeed, this master you were talking about design for resilience is even smaller scale. I think resilience and sustainability is all over, from my point of view, it's not so important how we tackle the scale, but how we tackle the connections between the elements. So I cannot run a city that is resilient if the buildings are not resilient. So we were talking before about humanitarian challenge, adaptive challenge, justice challenge. In the humanitarian challenge now, for instance, I was this summer in Iraq, I was in South Sudan, in Ecuador, with very, very severe crisis with migrants. They need architects. Some of the shelters and the buildings all over have been destroyed. We need to reconstruct these buildings for them, housing buildings and sometimes administrative buildings. These buildings, of course, build together a fabric that is an urban fabric. These buildings should be rebuilt upon the eco design, and you know better than no one the eco design measures we need to apply in the new buildings and in the rehabilitation of the buildings that already exist. If not, we are not going to reach the Paris 15 goals. This is first. So we are talking about devices, we are talking about buildings, and of course the urban fabric we build and we combine with the buildings inside. And when it comes to justice, for instance, we even through the built environment can enable more, allow me to be a bit naive, but safer, more protective, and ideally more inclusive and equal society. And it's a built environment that surrounds us, which permits that this kind of relationships happen. And I have been traveling all over the world with seeing different built environments in different cities. And when you have a city in which you can walk, you can touch people, you can look to the eyes of other persons that have nothing to do with you, you live in a building that is eco-designed, and you have a governance that allows you to be protected. Yes, I am not asking for easy things, and no, but just with that, we have a better world.
Well, in fact, I think that you will show us some real projects, no? So
Yes.
Let's see which is the answer from an architect.
Yes, I would like to talk a bit first about the idea of resilience. I perhaps you know the definitions of urban resilience or adaptive resilience, climate resilience. I have gone to the basis. Just the idea of resilience, that is the capacity of a living being to adapt to a disturbing agent or adverse situation. And not only that, because with that we will have a resistant living being, but not a resilient living being. And for a living being, we know we need the Latin word that is resilio, which means turn back, jump back, stand out, bounce back. This elastic and flexible idea of that you are going to be not the same, but even better after a crisis. And it's not an ideal, it's real. Some people that you perhaps know, after a quite tragedy or tragic or traumatic situation, or some context of cities, have already passed through it. So this is first to talk a bit about the concept of course, how this concept is related with sustainability, because for architects, sustainability, eco-design sounds familiar. Resilience is something that, okay, what does it mean? And of course, there is a relationship between resilience and sustainability. You can see here the different pathways that we call a developmental pathway. No growth, but development is not the same, and it's not by chance that we choose these words. And of course, we have these adaptive circles around the line of growth, or sorry, the line of development, in which we can really have this resilient pathway. And this is something that we have in this Master of Design for Resilience. I think that you know the idea and the three P's, the triple bottom when it comes to sustainability: people, prosperity, planet. And as I was talking before, up until now, we had forgotten risks. But if we count on risks and we combine these risks with the three P's, we will end having the equation of resilience. Of course, always focusing more than on anything else on people in vulnerable situations. And always taking into consideration that there are some items that will be attractors. We will have external forces. When we talk about shocks, we are talking always about external threats that we could have as human beings, as buildings, as cities. And we have also internal weaknesses that we, in our jargon of resilience talk, call stresses, of course, challenges, and the pressures that could be bottom up or I don't remember the word in English now, bottom up, and help me, could be both. And we take into consideration the pressures, the shocks, the stresses, and also the attractors, to try to understand how sustainability and resilience go together. I will explain 3 examples of resilience and collaboration. First of all, I have to go to the 5 resilience principles. The source, as you see, is an ISO. It's a technical report, Security and Resilience, Urban Resilience Framework and Principles. In the case of the principle 1, we would be talking about the dynamic nature of urban resilience. This means that as for a human being, resilience is not a condition, it's a state. You can be resilient today and not be resilient tomorrow. So you have to work on your own resilience to be resilient through time. So resilience is a concept that is dynamic. This is first. Second, we have this systemic approach, not only systematic, but also systemic. This means that we are working through interconnections, through complex networks. And if you change one part of the network, the entire network will be modified. Third principle, participative governance. This means that we are promoting through resilience a collaborative work in which ideally everyone should be involved. And fourth principle, multi-stakeholder, is not exactly the same, because in the case of multi-stakeholder, we are talking more about institutions, about local, regional, national, neighborhood scale, in which we are working with different competencies and also duty bearers that should be working together for resilience. And of course, the fifth principle that has to do with the SDGs. I think some of the panelists have already talked about the SDGs. Of course, we have the Agenda 2030. We have to reach this agenda as soon as possible. I know that, again, it could sound naive, but of course we have to pursue it. And resilience has to do with sustainability, as we have talked before, and should drive towards safe work and sustained development. I will talk about 3 examples for not to make it too long. These 3 examples will go are related with the principle 3, 4, and 5, that are the ones that I think have more to do with collaboration. First example has to do with participative governance, talking with citizens, getting citizens involved. It's a project that is funded with the European Commission under the framework of the Urban Innovative Actions. I don't know if you know this initiative, and under the chapter of the Sustainable Use of Land and Nature-Based Solutions. This project is based in Baia Mare, is city in Romania. They had the most severe environmental crisis after Chernobyl in Europe because of different heavy metal contamination. We are talking about water pollution, soil contamination, and air pollution. And now the city is trying to solve these issues through nature-based solutions. I didn't know, perhaps you knew before, I didn't know before entering in this project, that willows have this magic skill. The roots of the willows can clean the soil from heavy metals, and they are using these trees. This is the core of the project. It's of course long-term project. It's not very expensive, and if we could scale this idea of trees cleaning the soil contamination, we could really make a better world, I think, because at least in several of the cities I have visited through these years, I have seen that they have this problem of the soil contamination. Well, through this willows work, the core of the project, in Baia Mare, the Spire Consortium is trying to, of course, they have developed some indicators, a GIS platform, to see how the pilot sites in which we are planting these willows, how these pilot sites are evolving. They have built an Aspire hub within the urban fabric. It's a kind of headquarters to show up what's happening in the city, what are the changes, and to talk with the citizens and the city council. They have launched also digital coin, a digital local coin called ILU, to grant people that change their behavior related with environment. And through these pilot sites, they are trying to see how in 2050 the city is going to be a better city, and trying to see how the urban planning is going to be is going to transform the city. I will focus. I will try to be as brief as possible. I will focus in the local network that they have built with this project. 4 months, and even despite the COVID, They have been working with this collecting data and engaging citizens, trying to see what do citizens think about the environmental problems they suffer in the city, and of course, health issues. They have run different surveys in which they have collect several data. Once they got kind of picture of the situation, they went for workshops that luckily after the COVID could be done in person. And they began to talk and to chat, to dialogue about how to co-create and make decisions together in this pilot sites after the Willows work. And you can see there that finally they got even some participatory implementation solutions through the different workshops, not in rooms, indoors, as you can see in the second picture, but in the pilot sites, as you can see here. So they were actively working on planting willows and also on thinking about how to design these parks and public spaces when these willows end this marvelous work of cleaning the soil contamination from heavy metals. So this is one of the examples I bring to the table as for participatory governance, talking with citizens in Baia Mare in Romania.
Then, Amaya, this means that this solution has been more related to biology and these natural solutions. That's something that an architect by his own or her own can solve, right?
Yes, I think as I was telling before, everything is related. As you have seen, the Baia Mare in 2050. So everything that has to do with the urban fabric of Baia Mare will be transformed through this project. So of course, a lot of architects and landscapers are involved in this project. All these workshops that I just show in one slide are full of professionals that are behind trying to help and try to show up how design can improve lives and the urban fabric and the lives of the people. I cannot focus on many details because we have not the time, but of course the biomass of the willows is going to be used to build to produce building materials. And these building materials, we pretend to apply these building materials on eco-design buildings that will be will be creating the future urban fabric of the city. So everything is related. It's not about the architect working alone, this is for sure. It's about architects working with biologists, working with the city council, working with business developers, green business developers, luckily, citizens, landscapers, trying among all of us going for a better city in 2050.
Very good. I don't want to interrupt you more because we will be short of time, so I leave you to continue.
Okay, I will try to be as quick as possible. Now, second example, this is Barcelona, more mature city as for resilience. This is quite new because this is an ongoing project, but I got permission to show it up. In Barcelona since 2018, the Barcelona Resilience Department has been developing a risks timeline. This means that all the risks that the city has been facing are now in a kind of timeline in which we can see the impact, the time, what happened. We have three colors. One color, green, is for natural crisis. Purple is for technological crisis, and orange is for social and economic crisis. So now we have a Barcelona risks timeline that is interactive. During this year, we have tried to build this map of risks to Barcelona, because we need to develop the Barcelona resilience strategy. And in this case, what we have done is we are not talking so far to citizens. We are talking with the personnel of the city council. This means that after the Barcelona Resilience Department has already identified the risks that Barcelona has been suffering through these last years, we have prepared a survey. It's an online survey in 2 phases. More than 100 people have been working with us answering this survey. And now we have prioritization of risks, and we have a better idea about how these risks have impact the city, if the city is prepared or not for these risks, and how often these risks are coming. And from this risks prioritization and this Barcelona risk map, we will develop luckily by next year, the Barcelona resilience strategy. Of course, again, talking about the city, the urban fabric, the governance, citizens, and with the buildings that are helping to support the urban fabric. Something that you can already consult, because the rest of the process is ongoing, and I think we will be able to show all the details by next year, is the Resilience Atlas of Barcelona. It's really nice work in which we combine data that are territorial data and census data and statistical data, and we are beginning to show up how does it mean resilience in the city of Barcelona. So this is already public, so you can consult it. And of course, I live in Barcelona, so I'm very happy to show it. And to finish, my last example that has to do with the 5th principle, that is the principle that has to do with the Agenda 2030, is something that also is new. It's called COSMA. It's the International Network for Sustainable Health. We discovered that up until now, we couldn't find a doctor that could be expert on environmental health. And we discovered also that, of course, the built environment affects our health and our well-being, the SDG 3. And we founded this COSMA Observatory, composed by a lot of people now that go from technicians, doctors, in my case, architect and urban planner, expert on data, experts on administrative administration and health, public health, and so on and so forth. So this is an observatory that, again, is a collaborative effort that wants to generate knowledge, that wants to foster collaboration and interaction among different actors, that wants to promote, of course, innovative actions. And And it's based in this data coming from WHO, World Health Organization, that says that 24% of the global burden of disease and 23% of mortality are attributable to environmental factors. So we really need to tackle these issues. And well, how do we tackle it in this observatory? As I was explaining before, we have different pillars from cities, urbanism, health, environment, science, trainings, law, business industries, data, research, and we have created this observatory. It pretends to be an incubator for new ideas and projects related to environmental medicine, the environment and health. You can see there the dynamic units of environmental health that we have so far. And well, this is it. It's mainly tackling the SDG 3, but of course, we are talking also the SDG 11 cities, the 13, 14, 15 that has to do with environment, life on earth, life on water. We have tackling also the 16 and 17, talking about alliance, and I think almost everyone, but of course the most important SDGs we are tackling are these. And well, I think with this I finished. Just a small final sentence about the idea of building a resilience culture, taking into consideration not only the sustainability triple bottom, but also the risks, creating collaborative networks, and being able to turn crisis into opportunities, because there is no other way. Thanks.
Thank you, Amaya. Let me give the opportunity to Teresa to make you a question. Teresa?
Thank you, Amaya. Good night, I think, right? Es de noche allá. Buenas noches.
Sí, es tarde aquí.
So I have only one question. What do you recommend somebody who's interested in working your field? So where to start, how to collaborate in companies like yours? What do you think we should do?
Well, there are no so many companies in the private market now working on resilience. I think it's more about United Nations, of course, as for buildings, and of course as for cities. We have UN Habitat working with buildings and cities. We have UNDRR, that is the UN agency working with disaster risk reduction. We have IOM, that is the UN agency working with migrants, also with building, shelter, and something that now we call the area-based approach, that trying to tackle urban settings. It's true that it's pretty different depending on the discipline you are coming, but I think the market now is quite open. Okay. If we are proactive, no matter if you come from journalism, graphic design, product design, architecture, urban planning, governance, you can work on resilience, because little by little everyone needs to, all the institutions will go for it, because risks are there. So
thank you. That's good. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, you can continue, Ignacio.
Thank you so much, Teresa. Very, very good question. But also, I think is related probably to work in these situations. We need a new syllabus in universities, no? Amaya, so can you explain a little more about your master's degree? Because this is something that I think is necessary. When I was studying urban planning or architecture or construction, there was nothing about resilience, you know?
Yes, I didn't want to go for the master, but yes, of course, the master was born because we really identified this need. We saw that neither designers nor architects, even just a few urban planners knew about resilience, and we saw 10 years ago that this discipline was going to be really crucial. So we decided to propose this master that is quite a pioneering master, trying to tackle different scales from product to buildings to urban scale and of course strategy, because we saw that well, there was nothing like that on the academic market, let's shall we say. So this is the reason why we decided to go for this master, and we had to build more or less of the methods and way of working, and we are working on it, yes, because we are believers. We really think it's needed.
And then,
Thank you.
Amaya, one thing is resilience, and something that you have pointed out is the necessity, the need for more collaboration. No? So at the end, this is something also that probably here in Europe or probably Mediterranean countries, we are not so used to be so collaborative. And I'm a collector of different books and things that, let's see if this can be seen, probably not, but well, it's talking about collaboration, you know, so this kind of books about collaboration, teamwork. So how do you think that we have to deal with this? So how we can learn that in a situation that needs this, that has this challenge, and we need to be resilient, seeing the solutions for these three different projects, how an architect can be more collaborative, or what do we have to introduce in our brains, let's say, in order that instead of seeing our own solution, we can share our solution. No?
I have always thought that innovation begins with conversation. This is first. And my mother always told me we have 2 ears to listen and one only mouth to talk. So we need to listen more and talk perhaps less. I know that in the architecture culture or in the architect's culture, this is, at least in Europe, is not so usual. But when we were thinking about the master of design for resilience, and we decided, okay, what are the characteristics of someone that wants to talk, that wants to work on resilience? And one of the characteristics was curiosity. And the second one, most important, was to be humble. Mm-hmm. Yes, when you are humble, when you listen, you begin to share. It's not so difficult. Yes, you need to understand that you don't know everything, and that you need other people that complete your weaknesses, and that your strengths are there to complete the other one. So yeah, it's just it's more of it's a personal, professional position. When you face any other colleague or any other problem that you have to solve, listen and try to go together for a common solution.
I think we have the last 3-4 minutes, Amaya. Something that I'm curious about is that you have shown us this resilience atlas from Barcelona. So UN objective is to begin to make this resilience atlas in different cities, in different countries around the world, or this has been one sample of one project to be done in this way, or how are you approaching?
Well, this is not a UN project, it's a Barcelona City Council project. Barcelona is quite mature city as for resilience, so it's a project that the second project I have showed is is coming from Barcelona municipality. When it comes to UN and the SDGs and everything that has to do with resilience, there is something that now is called voluntary local reviews that you can just Google if you want. And you will find a lot of cities within the world that are trying to see how they are going to contribute to the SDGs through the own indicators that are trying to build in the city. This is one thing. But the Barcelona Resilience Atlas is something very genuine. It's coming only from Barcelona, of course, with the support from different organizations, among others, UN, Habitat in this case, or UNDRR, if I am not mistaken. But it's a project that is genuinely that is coming from the Barcelona City Council. That is, I don't know if you know that now with the Making Cities Resilience campaign has been appointed as an urban resilience hub within the world, the city of Barcelona, among others. And it's quite mature as for resilience. So this exercise of the Resilience Atlas is genuinely, I don't know if this is the word, coming from Barcelona City Council.
So thank you very much, Amaya, because we have discovered a lot of things. I have learned a lot. So the first thing is that architects are more than necessary in this resilience situation, that eco-design is also necessary. I love this formula that you have told us and how this about dynamic, systemic, participative, multi-stakeholder and the sustainable development goals is something that we have to learn a lot, to try to follow this would say this field for the new times that are coming. And of course, I think that we have to end with this citation from your mother, no? We have 2 ears and only one mouth. So this is made because we have to listen the double and to speak the half. So thank you very much, Amaya.